The mesh tool in ArchiCAD is the tool that we use to create sites and abstract shapes. If we left mouse click to select that, once again the info box fills in with all the parameters for this particular mesh we're about to create. But I'm going to open the default settings dialog box, and over here is our normal palette with, first of all, the depth of our mesh. Now the depth of our mesh is from the bottom to the first node, or a zero height that it starts at. And story 0 is 0 again. We have three options over here. We can create a skin, we can create a skin with a skirt, or we can create a solid body mesh. We can also show that mesh on different stories, on the current story, one story up, down, all stories, and also custom. And of course if you click on custom there, the custom palette comes on. At the moment we're going to place this on a site modeling layer. That's our layer that we're actually going to put our mesh on. If I expand the floor plan and section attributes, once again here we have what our mesh will look like if we cut through it. That's the fill that we're going to use. Then the pens, it's all going to be used for this cut. Ridge will be green, or pen number 58. The outlines in the floor plan will be pen number 1, be a solid line, and if I wanted to use a cover fill, I select that and expand it, and we can see here at the moment it's an empty cover fill, and there's a number of other options there which I'm just going to collapse because I'm not going to use it. And then once we're happy with that, I can collapse that once again. Here in the model we have materials. We can have all ridges sharp, user defined, or all ridges smooth. It's set by default to all ridges smooth because most sites have a fairly smooth undulating surface. And then once we're happy with that, we also have the listing label, which is taken care of in another movie on this DVD. So once I push OK, I can start modeling the site. We have a number of different methods of constructing there. First of all, the Polygon Method, in which we can draw any shape we like just by left mouse clicking on different nodes. If I go Ctrl Z, we can also draw a straight rectangle, rotated rectangle, where we define the angle first, left mouse click again and drag out. If you were going to do that, you'd probably rotate the grid as well if you needed to, and just quickly, if you wanted to do that, you could just view, grid options, set skewed grid, left mouse click on first node, second node, and then that way our X and Y coordinates are matching our rotated rectangle. I'm just going to undo that again by clicking on orthogonal grid and get rid of that slab. And then we also have this final construction method, which shows this regular sloped construction method. And if I draw a site with that, it asks us to divide the site into divisions, and we define the first corner elevation by clicking, let's just say 3 meters. The second corner can be 1 meter, and then this top left hand corner I'm going to put at, leave at 0 actually, push OK. Then if I push F4 on the Mac or F5 on a PC, we can see by giving it a meter depth, we can see our gradual surface that we've created. And if I wanted to change any of those heights, I can merely, while I'm on the mesh tool, left mouse click on that, and I can, my pet palette, click the Z height, and I can drag that height to anything I like. I can type in a distance if I like. So if I push Control Z, and back to the floor plan, I'm just going to delete that. Now I'm just going to model a site that's probably a bit more conventional. And I've just drawn a mesh. We can see that we've got a meter depth and it's just a flat side at the moment. So if I go back to the floor plan, and most of the time we'll get sites with contours on them, or we have access to contours from some surveyors. So I'm just going to draw a couple of 2D lines over the site to simulate some contours, and then if I select the mesh and I'm on the mesh tool, if I hold my spacebar down and I left mouse click with the spacebar held down, we can add new nodes or trace this contour. And if I click again, going to do the same again, same again, same again. And so I'm just holding down the shift key and left mouse clicking on each of these contours. Now if I deselect everything and go to the 3D window by pushing F4 on the Mac and F5 on the PC to get to my 3D window, we can see the contours there, but I haven't changed anything yet. So now I'm going back to the 3D window, selecting the mesh. It's important that the mesh is selected. Then as my mouse hovers over one of these nodes, left mouse click and type in the height. I might type a meter here. And then it's important to press apply all. That will give, after pressing OK, that will make this whole contour at 1 meter. Just to make this clearer, I'm going to access the floor plan section controls from there and select ridge selection, show user defined. And we can't see the drop down there, so I'm going to use this palette anyway. Over here, outlines in floor plan, I want to show all ridges, and by pressing show all ridges it shows the triangulation of that contour that I just created. So now I'm going to keep moving on here, so I might make this 2 meters, apply to all. This is still at 0 and this is still at 0, so I might take just the corner up to 1 meter, and I'm not going to press apply all because that will take all the outside boundary that's connected up to 1 meter. So I'm just going to make that 1 meter. We can see that our site is taking form. When editing the mesh, we also have a number of options, and I'm going to illustrate these by cutting holes all the time. So our first option is no surface fitting, which means that should make everything go down to 0. So now we've got a 0 level there as well. Next is fit to user ridges, and when we use this method, new points will be placed on the current surface mesh and only the user defined ridges will keep their height. This method is recommended mostly for renderings. Then finally, create a hole again, fit all ridges. If I push OK there, with fit all ridges, it adds new points and they'll be placed on the current surface of the mesh, and all ridges will keep their height. This method's the most accurate one, but will generate the largest number of ridges. So now when I push F4 on a Mac or F5 on a PC, we go to the 3D window and we can see the result of these three different methods. If we want to add more points or new nodes to the mesh, make sure you're on the mesh tool, make sure the mesh is selected, and make sure you're on the polygon tool, and then we can just draw anywhere we like, add new points, and I can change the height of them here if I like. Apply to all once again, so now we're at 5 meters. We can see that the new points are just placed there. If I select the mesh here, I can also move them up and down in the 3D window. The differences between all ridges sharp, we can see the effect just makes everything as the title suggests. All ridges are sharp, user defined sharp, and then the smoothest, all ridges smooth. We can use the mesh tool to create all sorts of objects other than just sites. Over here we have an example of 3 meshes, the main structure, this little mesh here, and underneath. This mesh is, as we can see, it's a bit of a canopy as well as an ornate object. This was kindly donated to us by Nth Degree Architects here in Melbourne, and we can see how he's done we can see how he's modelled this strange structure there, and also he's modelled a site. We can see that's also a mesh, and quite innovatively as well, he's used a roof tool to make the driveways. So it's a good example of how you can use ArchiCAD elements, not necessarily just for what they seem like at face value. So if I just close that, here we see the mesh on the floor plan, and if I go to the photo render view, here we can see the fantastic effect that he's created. And finally, if I go to his layout, here we can see the shape of it in elevation and from the front as well.